Hi gang, welcome back to the Arks of Omen, the third book of the series. Vashtorr is out, so in this video I'll take you through the third part of the story. Right, first, if you're new to this, you might want to start at the start with the first book in the series, Abaddon, but in summary, this is kind of where we are. The Despoiler has teamed up with Vashtorr the Archivane, the demonic representation of technology gone wrong, and unleashed the Arks of Omen across the galaxy. Each Ark is a space hulk dragged from the rolling tides of the warp and modified by Vashtorr and then given to one of many Chaos warbands that serve the Warmaster. With its attendant Bale fleet, each Ark was then sent to recover various esoteric artifacts from across the galaxy, which Vashtorr plans to make into a great key to unleash an ancient power, something that will elevate him to true godhood, and further Abaddon's plans to destabilize the Imperium. So it's a ton of side quests while the Despoiler's busy with the main plot over in the Nachman Gauntlet. Last time round, we centered in on the demon Primarch Angron and the World Eaters as they assaulted and eventually destroyed the planet of Malakbile in an attempt to shut down the Choral Engine. A great psychic beacon shining in the warp, kind of like a really angry moth. But this time we follow the crazy adventures of Vashtorr, who manifested in the ruined system to claim a strange glowing stone from the heart of Malakbile. So, in his formless realm outside of time and space, Vashtorr is a little worried. He knows that the servants of the four great chaos powers might attempt to foil his plan, and he even worries that the mysterious Dreamer, the exile king who roams further afield by day and no longer fights alone, would try and stop him. Whoever that is. So he monitors the various arcs on their quests, trying to divine where he can manipulate the strands of time to result in a more agreeable output. Matters required acceleration, and by tweaking the clockwork probabilities in real space, the results of various machines over centuries of time, all instantaneous to him in the warp, he might construct an output that would be more agreeable. He manifested on a remote inquisitorial watch station, one that had been established to spy on and keep track of the secretive Dark Angels chapter of Marines. Inhabiting machines corrupted centuries before, and with the aid of Alpha Legion disguised as the Death Watch, Vashtorr slaughtered the occupants and released an ancient and feared abominable intelligence imprisoned within. And then he asked the rogue machine a simple question. Where might he find the Rock, the fortress monastery of the Dark Angels? In the meantime, far away on the planet of Marwan's Reach, the Ultramarines had been deployed to hunt down an elusive Chaos Space Marine warband. The planet was under attack by the Chaos Knight House Korvax, aided by a secretive cult of hooded Astartes who seemed to be able to summon darkness at will and use it to transport the knights around the planet. Chief Librarian Tigurius, at the head of a task force detachment from Indomitus Fleet Primus and aided by elements of the Nova Marines and the loyal Night House Raven, had been engaged for months, attempting to pin down the Chaos forces. They had frustratingly little luck. Every time the Knights attacked, they'd bleed back into the shadows before the Ultramarine task force could bring its big guns to bear. But unknown to them, they were about to receive overwhelming reinforcements. Spooky heretic Astartes, clad in dark robes and ancient armor, who seem to be able to blend into the shadows at will. No, the Dark Angels haven't got a clue what you're talking about, but they'll take a look anyway. Suspecting the presence of the Fallen, those Dark Angels who turned from the chapter during the Horus Heresy, a strike cruiser from the Dark Angels had been quietly observing the deployment and, convinced, signaled for reinforcements. As Tigurius and his battle group fought on the surface, the Rock and its attendant fleet translated into real space at the edge of the system, barreling at full speed towards Marwan's Reach, carrying fully half the Dark Angels chapter. But as the fleet organized itself for imminent deployment, another warp rift opened perilously close to the Rock, and one of the largest and most dangerous of the Arks of Omen emerged. The Aurak Unleashed had been merged with the abominable intelligence found by Vashtorr, and upgunned with unholy systems created by a wave of Dark Mechanicum cults seeded by Vashtorr over the centuries. Its Bale fleet, a force of Iron Warriors and Black Legion battleships gifted by the War Master, roared into engagement range ahead of the Hulk and unleashed their firepower on the Dark Angel's fleet as the outer system erupted with dark energies. Samael, Master of the Raven Wing, had overall fleet command on the Loyalist side, and seeing that the Chaos fleet had the advantage, attempted to disengage, ordering full power to link up with the Indomitus fleet in orbit around the planet. But as the Dark Angel's ships peeled away from the rock, the Aurak Unleash finally committed. Its reactors diverted all power to a vast superweapon at its heart, the one built in pieces by all those cults across the galaxy, mathematically aligned by Vashtorr so that their plans came together like clockwork at the exact moment they were required. A single blast of warp energy targeted the rock directly, blowing out the Gorgon's Aegis, the great network of energy shields that protected it, and as the stained glass windows of the rock's many towers shattered into the void, a vast swarm of attack craft departed the Space Hulk. Belial, Master of the Deathwing, had overall command of the defense as two fronts formed on the rock itself. The first was on the surface, where the armored might of the Dark Angels fought to keep hordes of Vashtor's demon engines from reaching the Tower of Angel, the remains of the Calibanite fortress monastery of Alderuk that formed the hub of the Dark Angel's defenses. But the most desperate battle was fought beneath the surface, where Grandmaster Azrael led veteran Dark Angel's forces to try and staunch the invasion. The corridors and tunnels of the rock were filled with demons and heretic Astartes, as veteran initiates of the chapter, the only ones permitted this deep, attempted to halt their advance. Eventually, the fighting converged upon the Galleria Abscondael, as Vashtorr and the Black Legion Sorcerer Lord Zorfas attempted to gain entry to the Nameless Gate, beyond which lay the darkest of the Angel's secrets. Azrael countercharged with his bodyguard, eventually cutting down Zorfas and advancing on Vashtorr, but as the two dueled at the approach to the gate, a looping howl sounded and every lumen in the chamber blew out. In the darkness, swirling warp portals opened and the mysterious robed Space Marines emerged in force, attacking both sides. The Dark Angels initially ascribed this to their ancient nemesis, the Fallen, but close up it was clear the newcomers wore armor in the colors of the Word-Bearers or the Alpha Legion. But Vashtorr had felt the dark intelligence behind this darkness and already knew who was responsible, who had attempted to foil his carefully laid plan. Be'lakor, the Dark Master, first demon prince of the Chaos Gods, had laid this trap, seeking to scupper his plans, and Vashtorr suddenly found his mortal form teleported to the surface of the rock, where, as Be'lakor's allied knights of House Korvax rode into battle against the Dark Angels and the Demon Engines, the two demonic entities, threw shade at each other. Get it? Shade? Because Be'lakor. Anyway, they had a magic wizard demon fight. Be'lakor's manifested form was stronger, but Vashtorr could make use of all the technology surrounding him, leeching energy from the Dark Angel's void shields and redirecting orbital defense launchers to aid him. The advantage swung back and forth, but as the two Chaos forces fought, the Imperials pressed their advantage. In the darkness below, Azrael's forces rallied and purged the chambers of robed heretics and demons alike, while on the surface, the invasion of the rock bought enough time for Tigurius and his task force, suddenly without an enemy on the planet, to join in. The ships of the Indomitus Crusade hove into position above the surface, squads of Ultramarines and Nova Marines dropping into combat, and with the loyalist knights of House Raven avenging themselves upon their ancient enemies. With Vashtorr's plans now totally in ruin, Be'lakor and the dark-robed Astartes following him disappeared into a warp portal, while Vashtorr, enraged, translated back to the Aurak Unleashed to bludgeon his way out of the system. The Imperial forces were left in control. The process of purging the rock would begin soon after, but not before Tigurius and his forces were curtly thanked for their assistance and then ordered off the surface, Samael's fleet moving into assault range to enforce the threat. Far beneath the surface, the Dark Angel's interrogator chaplains started work on the few heretic Astartes they'd managed to take alive. His plans in tatters, Vashtorr raged at Abaddon. Be'lakor was meant to be sworn to the War Master's service. Why had he gone rogue and attempted to thwart Vashtorr's plans? The traitor forces were close now. They had 70% of the artifacts they sought and 2 of the 3 core mechanisms. But for Vashtorr, an entity for whom time meant nothing and whose intricate machinations had multiple redundancies built in, new paths had opened up. The captives held by the Dark Angels in the Rock would have their minds unlocked, primed to give the Dark Angels the information that the Aurak Unleashed had escaped to the Somnium Stars. The Rock housed an artifact of great importance, and if Vashtorr couldn't take it by force, then he'd lead the Dark Angels to the key itself. And there we go. The Imperium actually wins something, and chaos yet again descends into chaos. But whatever the level of setback, it looks like Chaos are finally getting somewhere. The Dark Angels are being led directly into the heart of Vashtorr's forges, bringing the final great artifact with them, whatever that is, and more than likely suspecting that it's an ambush, while the War Master and the rest of the Arks continue to prosecute their wars against the rest of the galaxy. Of course, the book also features all this other stuff, including additional boarding assault missions and extra rules for a bunch more factions, but there's still a few to go, so I suspect we'll be seeing more of these in the next books too. The fourth book is called Farsight. That's out at the end of the month, so we'll continue the story then. Thanks for watching. And if you'd like to keep up with the constantly evolving story of the Arks of Omen, then like, subscribe, and there's a Patreon you can click on in the thing below. See ya!